Princess Hana stepped through the massive doors of the Galactic Council Station, her royal guard following close behind. The station orbited a neutral world, far from any single empire's control. Today, representatives from hundreds of worlds had gathered here. The reason was simple and terrifying. The Void Swarm was coming, and no one knew how to stop it. The halls buzzed with tension. Hana had never seen so many different species in one place. There were the tall, crystalline cryalians who sparkled under the lights. The four-armed Quallans moved through the crowds with practiced ease. Massive reptilian Drachna warriors stood like living statues near the walls. Dozens of other species filled every corner, speaking in languages that created a wall of sound. But something was different today. As Hana walked, she noticed conversation stopping. Aliens turned to each other, their voices dropping to whispers. She caught fragments in the common trade language. "Is it true?" someone hissed. "They say he survived," another voice responded. "Impossible," a third voice said, but it sounded hopeful rather than dismissive. Hana's advisor, Rix, walked beside her. He was a Quallen, his forearms carrying datapads and communication devices. His amber eyes darted around nervously. "Princess, the Council is extremely worried. The swarm has taken 12 star systems in 6 months. Billions are dead." "I know the numbers, Rix," Hana said quietly. She had studied the reports until her eyes burned. The Void Swarm was unlike any enemy the galaxy had faced. They consumed everything organic, converting it into more of themselves. They couldn't be reasoned with or stopped by conventional weapons. Every fleet sent against them had been destroyed or absorbed. As they moved deeper into the station, Hana heard it again. The whispers grew louder, more frequent. And one word kept repeating, spoken in a dozen different alien tongues. Teeman. She grabbed Rix's upper arm. "What is Teeman?" "I keep hearing that word." Rix's face shifted through several colors, a sign of discomfort in his species. "Not what, Princess? Who? Timon is a human. A mercenary. And if the stories are true, he might be the most dangerous being in the galaxy." Hana felt a chill run down her spine. She had heard of humans before. They were the newest species to join the galactic community, only discovered 50 years ago. Most species found them odd. Humans were neither the strongest nor the smartest. They had average lifespans and no natural weapons. But they had something else. They refused to quit, even when any sane being would surrender. "Tell me about him," Hana commanded. Rick sighed, all four hands fidgeting with his datapads. 3 years ago, there was a place called Calderon Station. It was a military outpost on the edge of known space. The Void Swarm attacked it. 5,000 soldiers were stationed there. Every species you can imagine, the best warriors in the galaxy. They had ships, weapons, defensive shields, everything. And Hana prompted. "The station fell in 4 hours," Rick said quietly. "Everyone died. Every single soldier. The swarm tore through them like they were nothing. The station's reactor was going to explode, which would have destroyed 3 nearby colonies. Billions more dead." Hana waited, sensing there was more to the story. Except one human survived, Teeman. He was just a regular soldier, nothing special about him. But when everyone else was dead, he didn't run. He stayed at the reactor core, alone, for 6 days, Princess. 6 days he held that position, fighting off the swarm, keeping the reactor stable. "That's impossible," Hana breathed. "That's what everyone said." When the rescue fleet finally arrived, they found him. Still standing. The reactor was stable. Around him were thousands of dead swarm creatures. His weapon was empty. He was bleeding from over 100 wounds. But he was alive. He looked at the rescue team and said, "Took you long enough," then collapsed. Hana stared at her advisor. Stories like this were told to children, myths to inspire courage. They weren't real. You believe this? I've seen the footage, Princess. The council has it in their secure files. It's real. They entered the main council chamber. It was a massive circular room with seats rising in tiers all around. At the center was a platform where speakers addressed the assembly. Already, the chamber was full. Hana took her seat in the Veltorian section, her mind still spinning with the story. The session began badly and got worse. Speaker after speaker presented plans that wouldn't work. Send bigger fleets. Build better weapons. Evacuate entire sectors. Nothing addressed the real problem. The swarm was faster, stronger, and more numerous than anything they could field. Then Chancellor Vex stood. He was an Orathian, a species known for cold logic and ruthless efficiency. His voice cut through the desperate chatter. We have failed with conventional methods. We need an unconventional solution. We need someone who has faced the swarm and survived. We need someone who understands them. We need Tamin. The chamber erupted. Some species cheered. Others protested. Humans were too young, too unpredictable. How could one individual matter against a force that had destroyed entire fleets? Because, Vex said coldly, fleets can be overwhelmed. Armies can be outmaneuvered. But one individual in the right place, with the right knowledge, can change everything. Tamin proved that at Calderon. Find him. Bring him here. Let him tell us how he survived. Hana found herself standing. I volunteered to lead the search. Every eye in the chamber turned to her. Rix made a strangled sound of protest beside her. But Hana ignored him. She needed to know. Was the legend real? Could one person truly stand against the impossible? Chancellor Vex studied her for a long moment, then nodded. The council accepts. Princess Hana of Velter will locate Tamin and bring him to us. She will have access to all intelligence networks and resources needed. As the session ended and aliens filed out, Hana heard the whispers again. They followed her through the halls like ghosts. Tamin. The name was spoken with fear and hope in equal measure. It was the way her people spoke of ancient heroes, of legends carved into their history books. Rix caught up to her, all four arms waving in agitation. Princess, this is madness. We don't even know where he is. And if we find him, what makes you think he'll help? Hana stopped and looked at her advisor. Because if the stories are true, he's someone who stays when everyone else runs. He's someone who fights impossible battles. And right now, that's exactly what we need. She looked out through the massive windows at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, a human mercenary moved through the darkness. A man who had looked at certain death and refused to blink. A legend who might be their only hope. Find everything we can about Tamin's last known location, Hana ordered. Contact any human who might know him. I want to leave within 12 hours. As she walked away, she heard it one more time. An alien delegate speaking to another, voice full of wonder. The princess is going to find him. She's going to find Tamin. And somewhere, deep in her chest, Hana felt something she hadn't felt in months. Not quite hope, but close. The feeling that maybe, just maybe, the galaxy had a chance. The ship cut through space at maximum speed, leaving the council station far behind. Hana stood on the bridge, studying star charts that showed nothing useful. Tamin was a ghost, appearing and disappearing across the outer rim with no clear pattern. Her crew was small but capable. Rix remained as her advisor, though he complained constantly about the danger. The pilot was a human woman named Bora, military-trained, with sharp eyes and steady hands. She had volunteered the moment she heard about the mission, and Hana soon learned why. I served with him, Bora said during their first hyperspace jump. She sat in the pilot's chair, hands moving across controls with practiced ease. 5 years ago, before Calderon, we were in the same unit, standard peacekeeping operations on the frontier. What was he like? Hannah asked, desperate for any information. Bora was quiet for a moment, her eyes distant. Normal. That's what made it strange. He wasn't the biggest or the strongest. He didn't brag or show off. He did his job, looked after his squad, and kept to himself mostly. Just a good soldier. Nothing special. Then what changed? Calderon changed him, Bora said softly. He went into that station as one person and came out as someone else. The things he saw, the people he lost, it broke something in him. Or maybe it forged something new. I don't know. But when he walked out, covered in blood and still standing, his eyes were different. Like he'd seen the worst the universe could offer and decided it wasn't enough to stop him. Their first real lead came from a mining colony called Taros 9. It was a rough place, full of people who asked no questions and expected the same courtesy. The barkeeper, a scarred drachma with missing teeth, remembered a human matching Taman's description. A quiet guy, the barkeeper growled, wiping down the counter with a rag that looked dirtier than the surface. Stayed 3 days. Kept to the corner. Didn't talk to anyone. Paid in old military script. Hannah leaned forward. Did he say where he was going? Nah, but he asked questions. Wanted to know about swarm movements near the frontier. Seemed real interested in attack patterns, which colonies got hit, which ones didn't. The barkeeper's eyes narrowed. Lady, if you're chasing him for bounty, forget it. That human has a look about him. The kind that says he's already decided dying doesn't scare him. I'm not here for bounty, Hannah assured him. Did he mention anything else? Yeah, something about the silent sector. Said it was strange the swarm hadn't moved there yet. Rix pulled up information on his datapad, his face going pale. Princess, the silent sector is lawless space. No government, no law enforcement. Just smugglers, pirates, and exiles. Bora's expression hardened. He's not hiding there. He's hunting. Looking for patterns, studying the enemy. That's exactly what he'd do. They changed course, heading toward the silent sector. Along the way, more stories reached them. On Helia Station, Taman had apparently stopped a pirate raid single-handedly. The station security chief, still amazed weeks later, described how one human had turned a losing battle around. He moved like he knew where every shot would be before it was fired, the chief said. Never hesitated, never missed. Pirates broke and ran. In the nebula wastes, colonists spoke of a quiet man with sad eyes who saved them from slavers. He stayed one night, refused payment, and left at dawn. He didn't act like a hero, an elderly colonist woman said. He acted like someone doing a job that needed doing. Nothing more. Each story added layers to the legend, but also revealed the man beneath. Tanin wasn't seeking glory. He was seeking something else. Purpose, maybe? Or redemption. The silent sector was as dark and dangerous as promised. Their sensors picked up dozens of ships, none broadcasting legitimate identification codes. Bora piloted with skill, avoiding confrontations, following Rix's analysis of swarm sighting patterns. If he's tracking the swarm, he'd be here, Rix said, pointing to a region of dead space between two dying stars. There have been scout reports, but no attacks. It's unusual. They were 30 minutes from the coordinates when pirates attacked. 3 ships, fast and heavily armed, appeared from behind an asteroid field. Warning shots crossed their bow. They want us to stop, Bora said, hands flying across controls. Not happening. The fight was brutal. Their ship wasn't designed for combat. Shields dropped to 40%, then 20%. Hull breaches formed in the cargo bay. Hannah gripped her seat, watching death approach on the view screen. Then the pirate ship stopped firing. Their communications crackled with panicked voices. "Abort! He's here! Pull back now!" The three ships broke off, fleeing at full speed like something from hell itself was chasing them. "What just happened?" Rix asked, his forearms shaking. Their sensors showed a new contact. A small fighter, battered and patched together from a dozen different ship designs. It bristled with weapons that shouldn't work together, but somehow did. It hung in space between them and where the pirates had been, weapons still glowing from recent firing. A voice came through on an open channel. Calm, tired, and human. "Princess Hana of Velter. You've been looking for me." Hana's breath caught. "Timin? You're either very brave or very foolish coming out here. Maybe both." There was a long pause. "I'm sending coordinates. If you actually want to talk, meet me there. Come alone or don't come at all." The channel closed. Bora looked at Hana, concerned. "It could be a trap." "No," Hana said, certainty filling her. "If he wanted us dead, he would have let the pirates finish us. He saved us." The coordinates led to an abandoned orbital platform, spinning slowly in the void. It was old, predating modern ship designs by centuries. Hana took a small shuttle, ignoring Rix's protests and Bora's insistence that she should go instead. The platform's interior was dark, lit only by failing emergency lights. Frost covered the walls. Hana's breath misted in the cold air. She followed the corridors to what must have been an observation deck, a massive viewport showing a distant nebula painting space in purple and blue. He stood there, silhouetted against the stars. Average height for a human, lean build, wearing mismatched armor that had been repaired so many times it was hard to tell its original design. Dark hair, and when he turned to face her, dark eyes that held more weight than any eyes should. "You came alone," he said. His voice matched the transmission, quiet and measured. "Good. That shows you're serious." Hana studied him, this legend-made flesh. He wasn't what she expected. No aura of power, no dramatic presence. Just a tired man with scars on his visible skin and a weapon within easy reach. "The Council sent me to recruit you," Hana said. "The swarm is advancing. Millions will die. We need heroes." Taman listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable. When she finished, he asked one question. "Do you know what the Void Swarm really is?" "A hive mind, parasitic. They consume all organic matter." "That's what everyone thinks." Taman turned back to the viewport. "They're wrong. The swarm isn't just parasites. They're weapons. Someone made them." Hana felt her blood run cold. "That's impossible. At Calderon, in the final moments, I accessed a swarm neural cluster. Don't ask me how. I barely remember it myself. But I saw things. Fragments of memory, not mine. A creator race, long extinct, who built the swarm as a galaxy-wide weapon. But the swarm evolved beyond their control. If you knew this, why didn't you tell the Council?" Timon's laugh was bitter. "I tried. They called me traumatized, mentally unstable. Said I was seeing patterns that weren't there. So I decided to find proof myself." He pulled out a data chip and held it up. "I've been tracking the swarm for 3 years. They have patterns, Princess. The attacks you're seeing are scouts. Probes testing defenses. The real swarm hasn't arrived yet. When it does, it'll be billions strong. Your fleets won't last a week." Hana stared at him, horror and fascination warring inside her. "What do you want?" "A strike team. Small, fast, expendable. We're going to the swarm's source, the true hive, and we're destroying it from the inside. That's suicide." Timon's smile held no humor. "I've died before, Princess. I just didn't stay dead." Hana stood in that frozen observation deck, facing a man who spoke of suicide missions like they were simple errands. Every instinct screamed at her to refuse, to return to the council and find another way. But looking into Timon's eyes, she saw something that changed her mind. Not madness, but absolute certainty. He had already made his choice, and nothing would change it. "What do you need?" she asked. Over the next week, they assembled a team. Bora volunteered immediately, as Hana knew she would. "Where he goes, I go," the pilot said simply. "I owe him that much." Rick surprised everyone by refusing to stay behind. His forearms trembled as he spoke, but his voice was firm. "You are my princess. My duty is to stand beside you, even if it means standing in hell itself." They recruited others from the fringe, people with nothing to lose or everything to prove. Minsiok was a human ex-officer, discharged dishonorably for reasons he wouldn't discuss. He had expertise in alien biology that made him valuable. Ga was a Voltorian royal guard who had saved Hana's life once and now insisted on doing it again. Dayoung was a human demolitions expert with a wild laugh and wilder reputation. The team gathered on Timon's battered fighter, which turned out to be just one part of a hidden base inside an asteroid. The base was small, cramped, filled with equipment scavenged from a dozen different sources. Everything worked, but nothing matched. Timon spread a holographic display across a makeshift table. The swarm's territory glowed red, spreading like a disease across the map. "This is what the council sees. Random attacks, no pattern." His fingers moved and new data overlaid the map. "This is what I've learned. Every attack is calculated. They're not just feeding. They're preparing." "For what?" G asked. She was tall for a Veltorian, with ceremonial scars marking her as elite guard. "For the real invasion. Everything so far has been reconnaissance. They're learning how we fight, how we defend, where we're weak." Tammin zoomed the map to a dark region of space. "This is Oblivion's Reach, a dead system 12 jumps from the nearest inhabited world. 5 years ago, the swarm consumed it completely. I believe their central hive is there, the nexus that controls all the others." Minsiok leaned forward, his analytical mind clearly working. "If we destroy the nexus, the entire network collapses?" "That's the theory." At Calderon, when I accessed their neural cluster, I felt the connection. Every swarm organism is linked to the central consciousness. Cut the head, kill the body. How do we get inside? Bor asked. Taman pulled out a container. Inside was something that looked like organic matter, preserved in clear fluid. It pulsed with faint light. Swarm biosignature. I cut this from one of their scouts. It'll make our ship red as swarm to their sensors. We can slip past the outer defenses. And once we're inside, Doyen's grin was manic. He was clearly enjoying this more than was healthy. We planned this. Taman held up a device about the size of a human fist. Weaponized antimatter. Enough to destroy a small moon. We place it at the nexus, set a timer, and the explosion will cascade through the entire neural network. Every swarm organism in the galaxy dies simultaneously. Rix's voice was small. And how do we escape? The silence that followed was answer enough. Taman met each person's eyes in turn. We don't. The device needs to be activated manually from inside. No remote detonation. The swarm would detect and disable it otherwise. This is a one-way trip. No one left. Hana had expected at least some of them to reconsider, but they all stayed. She realized then that Taman had chosen them carefully. Each person here had their own reasons for accepting death. Some sought redemption, others purpose. All of them understood what they were walking into. They spent days preparing. Taman trained them obsessively, running combat drills until exhaustion forced them to stop. He taught them how the swarm fought, their patterns, their weaknesses. They're fast and strong, he explained, demonstrating on a practice dummy. but they rely on numbers and coordination. Disrupt their link to the hive mind, and they become confused. That's your advantage, the few seconds of chaos before they adapt. Late one night, Hannah found Teeman alone in the cargo bay. He sat among stacked equipment, methodically cleaning weapons with movements so practiced they were almost meditation. She sat beside him, not speaking, just sharing the silence. "Why do you do this?" she finally asked. "You survived Calderon. You could have walked away, lived peacefully somewhere." Teeman's hands paused, then resumed their work. "At Calderon, I made promises. To every person who died there, I promised I would make their deaths mean something. That I would stop the swarm, no matter what. I intend to keep that promise, even if it kills you. Especially then." He set down the weapon and looked at her. "You know what I learned at Calderon? That one person, refusing to give up, can hold back the darkness. Maybe not forever, but long enough for others to escape. Long enough for hope to survive. If my life can buy that for the galaxy, it's a fair trade." Hannah felt tears threatening and blinked them back. "You're not a hero, are you? You're just a man who refuses to let go. Maybe, or maybe that's what heroes are. Just people too stubborn to quit." The journey to Oblivion's Reach took 12 days. They traveled in a modified stealth frigate that Teeman had acquired through methods he didn't explain. The ship was called Silent Blade, and it lived up to its name, moving through space like a ghost. During the trip, Hannah watched Teeman interact with the team. He shared stories with Bora about their old unit, people they'd known, missions that went wrong and right. He taught Diane a human card game that involved lying convincingly. He sat in quiet companionship with Minseok, two analytical minds finding common ground. He listened to Jihee's stories of Voltorian honor with genuine interest. These moments revealed the man behind the legend. He wasn't a cold killing machine or a fearless warrior. He was someone who cared deeply, who formed connections even knowing they would end. He laughed at Diane's jokes, complimented Bora's piloting, asked Rix about Quellan philosophy. He treated each person with respect and kindness, never mentioning that he was leading them to their deaths. On the 11th day, Hannah asked him about fear. They stood on the observation deck, watching hyperspace blur past. "Are you afraid?" "Terrified," Teeman admitted. "Every day. I wake up afraid. I go to sleep afraid. But fear doesn't matter. Action matters. Doing what needs to be done despite the fear. That's what counts." "How did you survive 6 days at Calderon?" Teeman was quiet so long that Hannah thought he wouldn't answer. "Then I didn't think. Thinking would have made me realize it was hopeless. So I just kept moving. One shot, one moment, one breath at a time. I told myself, just survive the next minute. Then the next. 6 days became 8,000 minutes. I survived them one at a time. On the 12th day, they arrived at Oblivion's Reach. The sight killed all conversation. Every planet in the system was covered in swarm biomatter. It pulsed and writhed, alive and hungry. Ships from 100 different species drifted as dead husks, consumed and converted into organic material. And at the system's heart was the hive. It defied description. Larger than a moon, smaller than a planet, it was a living structure that breathed and grew. Veins of luminescent material ran across its surface. Swarm ships moved around it like blood cells, organized and purposeful. This was the nightmare that wanted to consume the galaxy. "That's where we're going," Teeman said quietly. "Into the heart of that." Hannah looked at her team. Bora's jaw was set with determination. Rix was praying in his native language. Minseok studied the hive with scientific fascination. Jie gripped her weapon until her knuckles turned white. Doyan laughed, high and nervous. "Well," Doyan said, "at least it'll be memorable." They activated the biosignature. The ship's readings changed, flickering to match swarm patterns. Slowly, carefully, they approached the hive. No alarms sounded. No ships moved to intercept. They were invisible, camouflaged as one of the enemy. The hive's surface opened like a mouth, pulling them inside. The hive swallowed them whole. The ship landed on a surface that felt like skin, warm and pulsing with alien life. The walls around them contracted, pulling them deeper inside. Through the viewports, they saw tunnels of organic matter, veins carrying nutrients, chambers filled with sleeping swarm warriors. "Everyone suit up," Timon ordered. His voice was calm, but his hands moved with urgent precision. "Brothers on. Weapons ready. Once we leave the ship, we move fast and quiet. Any noise could alert the entire hive." They disembarked into a nightmare. The tunnel stretched ahead, lit by bioluminescent nodes that pulsed like heartbeats. The walls were wet, breathing, alive. The air tasted wrong, even through the rebreathers, thick with chemicals that made their eyes water. Somewhere in the distance, they heard sounds. Clicking, scraping, the movement of countless organisms. Timon led them forward, weapon ready, every movement careful. He seemed to know where to go, navigating by instinct and memory of Calderon's similar layout. The hive's internal structure followed patterns, he had explained. The same design repeated across every swarm installation. Like cells in a body, they moved through passages that twisted and turned, always descending deeper. Sometimes they heard warriors moving nearby and had to press against the walls, praying their disguise held. Once, a group of swarm creatures passed within meters, their clawed feet scraping the floor, but they ignored the humans. The biosignature worked. Hours passed. Hana lost track of time in the eternal twilight of the hive. Her legs burned from constant movement. Sweat soaked her clothes under the suit. But Timon never slowed, never hesitated. He moved like he had done this 1,000 times, though she knew he hadn't. He simply refused to show doubt. Minseok accidentally brushed against a neural tendril hanging from the ceiling. It was an innocent mistake, barely any contact. But the effect was immediate and catastrophic. The tendril pulsed bright red. Alarms erupted through the hive. Biological screams that hurt their ears even through helmets. "Run!" Timon shouted. They ran. Behind them, the walls began moving, opening. Warriors emerged, massive creatures of chitin and rage. They were built for killing, with claws that could tear through armor and mandibles that could crush bone. They moved with terrifying speed, driven by the hive's singular purpose. Doyun turned, throwing charges behind them. The explosions shook the tunnel, bringing down sections of the organic ceiling. It bought them seconds. Bora fired her weapon in controlled bursts, dropping warriors that got too close. Jia moved with practiced efficiency, her blade finding weak points in alien armor. But there were too many. For every warrior they killed, 3 more appeared. The hive was waking up, mobilizing its defenses. They were insects trying to fight the immune system of a living god. "Keep moving." Timon led them through twisting passages, sometimes blasting through walls when the path ahead was blocked. His weapon never seemed to run empty. Every shot found its target. But even he couldn't hold back the tide forever. They reached a massive chamber, cathedral-like in its terrible beauty. The walls curved upward, meeting in a dome far above. And at the chamber's center, pulsing with evil light, was the Nexus. It looked like a brain made of coral and crystal, easily 20 meters across. Neural tendrils connected it to every surface, carrying information at the speed of thought. "There," Timon pointed. "Plant the device at the base." They ran across the chamber floor as warriors poured in from every entrance. Minseok reached the Nexus first, pulling out the antimatter device. His hands shook as he activated it. 12 minutes appeared on the display, counting down. "Now we run," Ting said. But the hive had other plans. The exits began sealing, organic doors growing closed. Warriors flooded in by the hundreds, forming a living wall between them and escape. Rix fired his weapon until it overheated, then used another. Beside Hannah, Ga fought like a demon, her blade red with alien blood. A warrior caught Rix with its claw, dragging him away from the group. He screamed, all four arms reaching out. Bora tried to go after him, but Temin pulled her back. "He's gone. Keep moving." They fought back to back, a shrinking circle of desperate defenders. Ammunition ran low. Jia took a wound to her side, but kept fighting. Doyan was laughing, manic and wild, throwing his last explosives into the massive bodies. 10 minutes on the device. Then Minseok looked at Temin, understanding in his eyes. "We're not getting out, are we?" "No," Temin admitted. "But we can still complete the mission." Minseok nodded once. Then he ran at the nearest group of warriors, his remaining explosives clutched in his hands. The detonation cleared a path, but cost them Minseok. His sacrifice bought them precious seconds. "There's one way," Temin shouted over the chaos. He pointed at the Nexus, at the neural tendrils connecting it to the hive. The Nexus controls every swarm ship in orbit. If I interface with it, I can command one to open an exit, blast through the hull. Laura's face went white. Temin, no. That link goes both ways. The hive's consciousness will flood into your mind. It'll burn you out. I know. Temin was already moving toward the Nexus, fighting through warriors with brutal efficiency. Get everyone to the ship. When you see the path open, you run and don't look back. I won't leave you. Bora screamed. You will. Temin turned, and for a moment his mask cracked. Pain showed through, and fear, and love for these people he was about to lose. Please, Bora. Someone has to survive to tell them what we did here. Let it be you. He reached the Nexus. The neural tendrils writhed like snakes. Temin took a breath, then plunged his hand directly into the massive organic circuitry. His scream was inhuman. The Nexus lit up like a star, blazing with light and power. Temin's body convulsed, muscles seizing. Blood poured from his eyes, his ears, his nose. The hive's consciousness was flooding into him. A billion alien thoughts trying to overwhelm his human mind. But Temin held. Somehow, impossibly, he held. His other hand still gripped his weapon, firing at warriors that tried to approach. His voice roared, words in a language that shouldn't come from human throats. Commands burning through the neural network dot above them. Something massive moved. A swarm cruiser, kilometers long, broke from its orbital pattern. Its weapons charged, aimed at the hive itself. Then it fired. The explosion tore through the hive's outer hull, creating a tunnel to open space. Atmosphere rushed out, carrying warriors with it. The path to their ship was clear. Go! Temin's voice was barely recognizable. Damaged by whatever was happening to him, Hannah grabbed Bora, who stood frozen, staring at Temin. Jie helped, and together they dragged the pilot toward the ship. Diane ran ahead, clearing the path. Hannah looked back once. Temin stood at the Nexus, one hand still connected, the other still firing his weapon. Warriors surrounded him, but he kept fighting. His body was breaking down, skin cracking, blood flowing freely. But he was still standing, still holding the line. Their eyes met across the impossible distance. Temin nodded once, a final goodbye. Then Hannah was being pulled into the ship, the door sealing behind her. Bora, tears streaming down her face, slammed the controls. The ship launched, engines screaming, tearing away from the hive. Behind them, The countdown reached 0. The antimatter device exploded. The nexus, that pulsing brain of the swarm, simply ceased to exist. The explosion spread through the neural network like lightning, cascading from connection to connection. The hive began dying, organism by organism, as the central consciousness that controlled them all was destroyed. The shockwave hit their ship, nearly tearing it apart. Alarms screamed. Hull breaches formed. But Bora held them steady, piloting through the chaos with skill born of desperation. They cleared the system's edge, just as the hive began collapsing in on itself. The last thing Hana saw through the viewport was the massive structure breaking apart. Chunks of dead biomatter drifting into space. And somewhere in that destruction, a human who had given everything to save people he barely knew. A legend who had become real, then became a sacrifice. The silent blade limped back to Council space, held together by emergency repairs and Bora's stubborn will. The ship was a wreck. Hull breaches covered with temporary patches. Systems failing one by one. But it flew, carrying its survivors home. News traveled faster than they did. Across the galaxy, swarm organisms simply stopped. On colony worlds under attack, warriors fell mid-stride. In space, swarm ships went dark and drifted. The neural network that connected them all had been severed. Without the nexus to guide them, they were just dead organic matter. The galaxy erupted in celebration. Parades in every major city. Songs of victory sung in 1,000 languages. The war that should have consumed everything ended before it truly began. Billions of lives were saved. Entire civilizations had been given a future. But Hana felt nothing except emptiness. They reached the Council station 3 weeks after the mission. Medical teams rushed aboard, treating Jihee's wounds and checking everyone for radiation exposure. Officials demanded reports, explanations, proof of what had happened. Hana stood before the full Council assembly and told them everything. She described the hive, the nexus, the fighting. She named every team member, explained how each one died. When she spoke Taemin's name, describing his final moments, the entire chamber fell silent. Even the most cynical delegates bowed their heads. Chancellor Vex stood, his cold Arathian features showing something like emotion. The human Taemin will be remembered as the savior of the galaxy. His name shall be recorded in every culture's annals. Monuments will be built. Songs will be sung. He gave everything so that we might live. The words sounded hollow to Hana. Taemin hadn't wanted monuments or songs. He had wanted to keep a promise to people who died 3 years ago. He had wanted to make sure what happened to him never happened to anyone else. Bora took it hardest. She drank too much, isolated herself, stopped sleeping. Hana found her one night in an empty observation deck, staring at an old photo. Young faces smiled up from the image, a military unit before deployment. Bora pointed to one figure, a human man with dark hair and a genuine smile. That's him. Before Calderon. Before everything. He was going to retire after that tour. Buy a small place somewhere quiet. Maybe teach. Bora's voice cracked. He was supposed to outlive us all. He was too stubborn to die. Hana sat beside her, not speaking. What could she say? That his death mattered? That he died a hero? Bora knew that. It didn't make the pain less. A month later, they held a memorial at Calderon Station. The station had been rebuilt, cleaner and stronger than before. At its center, they erected a monument. It was simple, just a black wall with names carved in glowing letters. Every soldier who had fallen during the original siege was listed. And at the center, larger than the rest, one name, Taemin. Representatives from 1,000 worlds attended. The ceremony lasted hours. Speaker after speaker praised his courage, his sacrifice, his legacy. Hana gave a speech, though her words felt inadequate. How could she capture in language what Teeman had been? How could she explain to people who hadn't been there what it meant to watch him hold that line? Life continued. The galaxy moved forward. New problems emerged. Old conflicts resumed. The swarm became history, a nightmare defeated. Taming became legend, his story growing with each retelling. Soon people were arguing about details, debating what he had really said or done. The man was disappearing beneath the myth. 3 months after the mission, Hana received a message. Priority transmission, origin traced to the outer rim. No signature, no identification code. Just a video file. Her hand shook as she opened it alone in her quarters. The video showed a small medical facility, human-run, on some nameless colony. A doctor spoke to the camera, voice tired but amazed. "We found him 4 days ago. Escape pod, badly damaged, drifting in dead space. The person inside was barely alive. Massive neural damage, radiation poisoning, burns covering most of his body. We shouldn't have been able to save him. We almost didn't." The camera moved, showing a recovery room. A figure lay in a medical bed, wrapped in bandages, connected to machines. The doctor continued. "He woke up yesterday. Can't talk yet. Damaged vocal cords. But he's stabilizing. Whoever he is, he's a fighter. I've never seen anyone survive injuries like this." The camera zoomed on the patient's face. Scarred, thinner, marked by terrible suffering, but unmistakable. Hannah's breath caught in her throat. Teeman, alive. She was on a ship within the hour. Bora insisted on piloting. They made the journey in 6 days, pushing the engines until they screamed. The medical facility was small, on the edge of nowhere, staffed by volunteers who asked no questions. The doctor met them at the entrance, a middle-aged human woman with kind eyes. "He's awake. Still weak, but improving daily. Fair warning, he's different from when we found him. The neural damage, what he went through, it changed him." Hannah entered the recovery room. Taming sat in a chair by the window, staring out at the colony's modest skyline. He looked older, worn down by pain and trauma. When he heard them enter, he turned. His eyes held recognition and something like amusement. "Princess." His voice was rough, damaged, but it was him. "I told you I don't stay dead." Bora made a sound between a laugh and a sob. She crossed the room in 3 steps, pulling him into a careful hug. "You absolute idiot. You complete fool. We thought you were gone. I was." Teeman's arms came up, returning the embrace weakly. "For a while, I think I actually was. But I had unfinished business. Over the next hours," he explained. In the final moments before detonation, he had severed the neural connection and used the swarm's own biomatter to shield himself. He had ejected in an improvised escape pod made from a dead warrior's carapace, betting everything that it would reach somewhere inhabited. The radiation and neural damage almost killed him, but human stubbornness, or maybe just pure luck, kept him alive. "Why?" Hana asked. "You completed the mission. You kept your promise. You could have let go." Teeman looked at her, and for the first time since she met him, smiled without pain behind it. "Because I realized something while I was dying. I made a promise to the dead, yes. But the living deserve promises too. And I wasn't ready to break mine to them." Word spread quietly at first. Whispers through military channels, rumors among mercenary groups. Then wider. "Did you hear? He's alive. Teeman survived." It became a phrase of hope, repeated on colony worlds and space stations. If he could survive the impossible twice, maybe anything was possible. Offers came immediately. The council wanted to give him rank, position, authority. Hannah offered him a place in her royal guard, with resources and respect. He refused everything except one thing, a place on her crew. Not as a subordinate, he clarified. As an equal. Someone to stand with when the next fight comes. Because there's always a next fight. 6 months later, the Silent Blade patrolled the frontier. The crew had grown, new faces joining the survivors. They responded to a distress call from a mining colony under attack by raiders. Standard piracy, nothing unusual. The ship dropped from hyperspace. Hana stood on the bridge beside Timon, both in armor, weapons ready. Ready? She asked. Always, he replied. They deployed to the colony surface. The raiders were numerous and confident, attacking a settlement that couldn't defend itself. Civilians huddled in buildings, praying for salvation. Then the strike team landed. The raiders saw them, weapons ready to fight. One raider, more observant than the others, saw the human leading the team. The raider's species had no concept of human expressions, but they understood fear. They had heard the stories. The raider whispered a name. It spread through their ranks like a curse. Timon. Some raiders broke immediately, fleeing to their ships. Others tried to fight, driven by pride or stupidity. The battle was short and brutal. Timon moved through it like a force of nature, not seeking violence but accepting it as necessary. When the last raider fell or fled, silence returned to the colony. Civilians emerged from hiding. A small Valtorian girl, no more than 7, approached Timon. She looked up at him with wide eyes full of wonder and fear. Are you really him? The one from the stories? Timon knelt to her level, his scarred face softening. Just a person who tries to help when they can. My dad says you're a hero, the girl insisted. Timon glanced at Hana, who watched with a knowing smile. I'm just someone who doesn't give up. The Silent Blade lifted off an hour later, leaving the colony safe and grateful. Hana and Timon stood in the observation deck, watching the planet shrink behind them. Stars stretched endlessly ahead, full of possibility and danger. They'll keep telling stories about you, Hana said. Bigger every time. In 100 years, you'll be a myth. Timon shrugged. Let them. If it gives people hope, let them believe whatever they need to. And what do you believe in, Timon? He was quiet, considering the question seriously. Finally, he answered. I believe that one person, in the right place at the right time, refusing to give up, can change everything. I've seen it happen. I've lived it. And I'll keep believing it until the day I actually stay dead. Hana smiled. Which hopefully won't be for a long time. Hopefully. Timon's expression turned thoughtful. Though knowing my luck, probably not. They stood together in comfortable silence. Two people who had faced the worst and survived. Around them, the crew worked.